डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी.
Namaskar. Welcome to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. I am Dr. Pritibha Ser. Today we are going to study the Unit 2 of Block 1. It is all about internet terminology such as what is web browser, what is web server, what is URL, how IP addressing is to be done, domain name system, and many more terminology. The agenda of today's lecture is Introduction to www, web browser, what is web server, what is distributed web server, and basic internet terminology, internet service provider and its services, static, what is static website and dynamic website. So these are topics we are going to cover in today's lecture. Introduction to www. The term www is generally known as World Wide Web. It is popularly known as web, and it is the system of interlinked hypertext documents that is accessed through the internet. Although many people use the term internet and web interchangeably, but in reality the internet is a system that facilitates the transfer of data, and the web is the data itself. The web is just one of the ways that the data can be disseminated over the internet. So, the internet is not the web, and these two terms should not be used interchangeably. Web pages can contain graphics, sounds, text, video, and many other document data. But in reality, the graphics, sound, and video are not part of web document. They are linked to the web document and display in accordance with the instruction which is given in the web page. So, the images, sounds, and videos, these are transferred over the internet separately, and they are displayed in the text according to the instruction contained in the hypertext document. The web basically have been introduced by the Tim Berners-Lee, a scientist working at CERN, and this is a European organization for the nuclear research. This scientist has invented World Wide Web in 1990, and he defined the World Wide Web is the global collection of documents and other resources, and these resources are linked by the hyperlink or URI. So, as per the figure which is given in this slide, it is the www is the collection of interlinked hypertext documents. It connects all types of devices that has network connectivity either through the cables or wireless connectivity. The user has to write URL it is called as a uniform resource locator. And this URL is a web address used to identify the documents on the web. One can access all the information available on the internet using web browser. So the web browser is a application software which makes the browsing of hypertext document easily over the internet. The most commonly the web uses the hypertext transfer protocol, HTTP protocol. It uses the HTTP protocol to share the information on the web. The web pages are primarily text documents and they are formatted and annotated with the hypertext marker language. It is called as a HTML. The web is very good example of the distributed network in which everything looks like as a document. The World Wide Web follows the client server model where the client software, we call it as a web browser, can be used to the request information, and the server software is used to process the request of the client, and it also resolve the request, right. So this is all about the what is www. Now let us see what is web browser. Basically the web browsers are primarily used for displaying and accessing the websites over the internet. The web browsers and web servers function together as a client server model in which the data is kept in a server location, which is called as a web server, and these are efficiently shared with any number of computers, and these are called as a client. In addition to this, the most web browser supports the external plugins which is required to display the active content such as in-page video, audio and game content. The web browser is an application software that we use it to view the web pages of the website, as well as we can upload and download files on the FTP server. The most popular web browsers are Google Chrome, Microsoft Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox and Apple Safari, and many more web browsers are right now we are using at present, right. So all these web browser functions as a client, and this client sends the request from the different website. Many web browser clients can request a data from the same website, and this request can happen all at different times or simultaneously, which is as shown in the figure, right. So this is the working of how web browser works. The client server system conceptually call all the requests to the same site, that is to be handled by one server, and this web browser basically rely on DNS, and this DNS has to work with the URL. This enables the different brands of the web browser to communicate with the different brands of the web server without requiring special logic for each combination. Web browser generally caches the web pages by storing in the cookies to increase the efficiency of the internet. While working on the web browser, the user must be aware about which kind of web browsers they are generally using. The web browser should offer the security and additional features, and such kind of web browser must only be used. The latest version of the web browser should be used by the individual client. Other than the standards, other varieties of the web browser must be explored. One should not use the only standard web browser, but one should have to use the different web browser also. One should also see the reviews of the web browser and accordingly refer to the other users also. Now, the next topic, that is all about web server. What is web server? The web server is generally high configured computer system which stores and processes and generally delivers the web pages to the website. The most commonly web servers is a Apache server, and this server is a free and open source software tool because it contains the maximum number of websites. Other available web server is a IIS, that is Internet Information Service, and it is to be owned by the Microsoft company. This web server comprises of many websites of the same or different organization, and in this web server all these websites have been given a unique IP address, right. So, even sometimes the multiple websites are often configured using host header on the different ports without using different IP addresses, right. So, this is how the web server works, and generally we can say that web server is nothing but the high configuration software as well as the hardware that uses the hypertext transfer protocol, and it is commonly known as HTTP, and other protocols such as FTP protocols also, right. And this protocol, using this protocol, it responds to the clients. The main job of the web server is to display the content of website, and it is to be done by storing, then processing, and eventually the delivering the web pages to the user, right. So, the web server supports, it also supports the simple mail transfer protocol to send email, as well as it also supports the file transfer protocol, it is known as a FTP, to transfer the file, right. So, now let us see how the web browser and web server works together to send the response, right. Now, when any web browser, for example Google or Google Chrome or Firefox, request for the file that is hosted on the web server, basically the browser will ask that file using HTTP protocol, and the web server receives that request, and then HTTP server basically accept that request, and after accepting that request, it finds the content which have been asked by the client and send back to the client using the HTTP, right. So, web server is generally which is working locally it is known as the intranet web server. In some cases, if the volume of the request to the web server is very large, the web servers are often built as a distributed web server. The web server and the web browser generally communicate via TCP/IP protocol, HTTP protocol, right? All these protocols working together to fulfill the communication between the web server and the web browser. Basically, when the browser asks for the page, then the process go through many stages, right? So the person have to specify the URL, that is nothing but the address of the web page, right? And this URL must be written in the web browser, and then web browser gets the IP address of the domain name, and this is done by domain name system. What it does? It translates the URL into the IP addresses. Once IP addresses is found, right, then the web pages is to be searched from the web server by the web server, right? And after finding that file, it sends back this file to the web browser using HTTP request. So the web server then responds and sends this requested page to the browser, right? And again, whole communication is to be done using HTTP protocol. In case if the page is not found, right, so accordingly it shows the error message to the client, right? So this is how this web browser and web server work together for the successful communication. Now let us see the distributed web server. What is distributed web server? The web server which is distributed across the different geographical location, and it is spreaded across the world. Actually, this distributed web server is used to enhance the communication speed, in which it contains the multiple web server, holds the information and it holds the information by the domain name server platform, right? So the DWS is like a web server. It is a high configuration computer which securely stores the hosted website on two different web server as displayed in the figure, right? Okay, so you can see that multiple websites are hosted by multiple web servers, right? There is no single web server, multiple, and this way we can enhance the communication speed using the distributed web server. Some distributed web servers are even web servers that are dedicated for the gaming. Some are for storage, some are for file transfer, and some are for the email, right? So DWS software that respond to the request of the client for the web resources and the information. DWS respond to the client request with any of two ways. The first, by sending the file to the client which is associated with the requested URL, or by generating the dynamic response by the web server itself. Either it may it has to communicate with the database or any other server also if it is required. The web documents basically they these are stored in a different geographical location among the different server, and these are replicated. So the load balancing of the replicated documents is always a point of concern, and it must be handled with the care. The DWS web server handles the response and request traffic efficiently, right? Again, the performance of the this communication can be done using the distributed web server. And to improve the performance of the web server, basically the technique called object replication is to be used. DWS environment is the most reasonable and dynamic against the failure of the hardware and software. So these are the some of the advantages of the distributed web server. Now let us see the basic internet terminology, that is about the IP addressing and domain name system. What is internet IP addressing? Basically, the internet is the large network which is spread across the world. It connects the thousands and millions of individual networks having the large number of computer systems and other connecting devices also. In order to successfully communicate over this large network, each and every computer system as well as other connecting devices are required to be identified uniquely. So the unique identification number is necessary to differentiate each and every devices, right? So this is to be done by the IP addressing and the domain name system. So let us see discuss the what is IP addressing, right? In this figure you can see all the devices are devices such as computer, then computer system, printer, hub, laptop, switch, routers and gateways and many more devices require the unique addresses, so that we can easily identify each and every devices over the internet, and this is to be done by the IP addressing. So the IP address is the unique address which identifies the devices on the internet or the local network, and this IP address is the most vital component in the networking. This integrates entire www over a single platform. It is considered as the core component for the worldwide. It is the core component for designing the network based architecture, and without this we cannot frame the network. It is similar to the address of individual organization. It is similar to the individual organization. Basically, it is required to post the professional and personal leader. Just like we are requiring the different networks, right? Every node or devices on the internet is uniquely identified and it is assigned IP address, and this assignment of IP address is to be done with the TCP/IP protocol, right? As you can see, each and every device has individual different IP addresses, right? And it is to be done by the TCP/IP protocol. The numbering in the IP addresses is divided into two sections. The first one, that is called as a network section. This specifies the type of network, and the second section is the host section. It specifies the exact location of the devices. The IP addresses are basically categorized into two types. It is called as a classful. First one is a classful IP addressing, which are grouped into 5 distinct IP addresses, right? For example, class A, class B, class C, class D, and so on, E. Secondly, the classless IP addressing, which has the random length of prefix, right? So this is how the IP addressing is to be done. Now, basically, the specification of the IP addressing, there are two forms of the IP addressing. The first one is the IPv4 version and the second is the IPv6 version. The details of each and every version have been given in this table, right? And you can see the addressing length of the IPv4 is 32 bit, while in case of IPv6 is 128 bits. That means it takes to 16 bytes. IPv4 has allow maximum number of 2 raised to 32 unique addresses, while in case of IPv6 it allows 2 raised to 128 unique addresses, right? So this is in this table the comparison between the IPv4 and IPv6 have been displayed over here. IP addresses, IPv4 generally has address decimal representation, while IPv6 has a hexadecimal representation for all IP addressing, right? You can have the general comparison chart of this IPv4 and IPv6, right? The numbering format in these two IPv4 and IPv6 is given here. It basically has 32 bits, and in case of IPv6 it has a 128 bits. Encryption and authentication is not offered in IPv4, right? So it is not much secure, while this facility is given in IPv6, right? The broadcast address facility is provided in IPv4, while this facility is not provided in IPv6, right? So you can see the example of IPv4. You can have 4 digit here. It is followed by separated by the colon, while in IPv6 you can see the different format here. Now, what is domain name system? The domain name system is a naming database in which the internet domain, for example, any website, right? These domain names are located. It consists of databases of the domain names and its corresponding IP addresses, right? So the domain names are basically of two types. The first one is the geographical location based domain name, and the second one is the organization based domain name. As you can see, the domain name specification location, you can have IN for India, right? Location, right? For United Kingdom we have UK type, right? For United States of America we have US, right? So according to the locations of the country, the domain name specification have been provided in the domain name system. Same way, according to the type of organization, domain name specification is to be done, right? So for example, we have commercial website or commercial organization, so it has .com. If there is a educational website, it has .edu, right? For non-profit organization, .org, and if there is a government organization, the domain name has a .gov. You must have seen such kind of domain names at present. So domain name system is basically a mapping of the IP addresses and its corresponding addresses, right? So these are the characteristics of the domain name. It is the domain name is a unique name which is given to each and every computer, and it is to be connected to the internet, right? Domain names are not case sensitive, right? As we have different types of domain name like www.bau.edu.in, right? So you can write these names in upper cases or lower case, right? So even though you will be able to access the BAU website, right? So domain name, as we have seen, are based on the geographical location, as we have seen in the previous table, as well as it can have organization, which kind of organization we have, right? Now this is the hierarchy of the domain name, in which there is a root level domain, right? From this root, different subdomains are there. For example, .net, then educational institute for edu. For commercial organization, it has .com. Then government organization, it has .gov. So the domain name is the unique name. It is given to each and every computer which is connected to the internet, right? You can see this hierarchy. For example, YouTube, right? So youtube.com. Now in the YouTube, if we have multiple channel, right? So channel 1, right? So it comprises of its corresponding names, channel1.youtube.com. If there is a channel 2, channel2.youtube.com, right? So this way we can perform the domain names on different hierarchy, right? So in this lecture we have seen what is www, the basic terminology about web server, what is web browser, how IP addressing is basically beneficial to identify each and every component, internet component over the internet. The rest of thing will be discussed in the next lecture. Thank you.